We apologize for interrupting your doom scrolling. Now, for some positive leftist news.
Hello and welcome to Positive Leftist News, comrades. I'm going to be your host this month. My name is Savannah, or some people know me as Savannimals online, but in real life, I'm a community organizer in Los Angeles, California. I'm one of the co-founders of a communist bookstore and community space called All Power Books, and I'm also a member of the Marxist-Leninist political party in the US called the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Now, I know that we need a little dose of good news now more than ever. I come to you with a heavy heart on the day that ICE killed another legal observer in Minneapolis today, and they're doing so with impunity. And so I know it's super easy to fall to nihilism and doomerism and all these things, self-isolation. But I'm telling you, the cure for all of that is getting out and getting organized in your communities. And I know I'm pretty much preaching to the choir, but I don't want to see any more online leftists in 2026. So what I want to impart to you guys is getting involved, like I said, and having high discipline and high morale, because it is our responsibility to remain optimistic and to show people the world that we are working so hard for and fighting so hard for is possible, and it's inevitable if we just fight hard enough for it. So I'm really excited to be on this program. I think that having a revolutionary optimism about you is one of the most important things you can do, especially as a leftist. You get very caught up in the cycles, and it's hard putting a band-aid on, so many institutional problems. But look around, there are sparks for revolution everywhere. The contradictions are sharpening, stuff is happening, and what we need is more people. So thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited, and knowing about the rest of the world doing so much and so many good things is just a feel good. I love being a part of a feel good segment. So nice meeting you. And without further ado, let's get into some good news. PLN is a member of Means TV, a worker-owned socialist streaming platform. Stay tuned until the end of the episode for a special 20% discount offer from Means TV, and find the discount link and code in the description box below. On Friday, January 23rd, Minnesota witnessed a statewide general strike, uniting labor, civil rights groups, and faith communities against ICE. Following the nationwide outrage sparked by the killing of 37-year-old Renee Good in Minneapolis on January 7th, communities across the United States had already mobilized over the weekend of January 10th during the ICE Out for Good weekend of action, a coordinated effort of at least 1,000 events organized by Indivisible. Demonstrators in Minneapolis, Portland, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and New York City chanted, drummed, and carried signs demanding ICE out now, as thousands of people came together to demand accountability. Building on this nationwide momentum, the Day of Truth and Freedom in Minnesota on January 23rd saw a statewide general strike involving no work, no school, and no shopping. It drew participation from labor unions, civil rights organizations, community groups, and faith leaders. "This is our right to refusal until something changes," said Janae Bates, co-executive director of Isaiah MN. "We are going to leverage our economic power, our labor, our prayer for one another." Across South Minneapolis, volunteers blocked ICE raids, following agents' vehicles and using whistles and car horns to prevent surprise attacks, forcing ICE to abandon their attempts. This incredible showing demonstrated that the city would not be intimidated. Service Employees International Union President April Verrett said to the crowd, "When injustice becomes policy, something else happens too. The people will rise up because the only alternative is surrender. And I don't think Minnesota is going to surrender." Just before the main demonstration, about 100 faith leaders blocked the road outside of Terminal 1 departures from the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, with 1,000 supporters behind them, demanding that Delta and Signature Aviation end their complicity with the ICE deportation flights. Police arrested the 100 faith leaders. The clergy prayed just before being handcuffed as a sea of protesters chanted, "We are the workers, the mighty, mighty workers." With thousands mobilized and dozens of organizations involved, the event proved more than just a protest. It was a demonstration of organized community power that will not relent under any circumstances.
It's Mexi here, jumping in post-production to add that on January 30th, hundreds of thousands of people across the U.S. responded to the call for a national shutdown involving no work, no shopping, and no school. Hundreds of protests took place in cities across the country with people united in resistance to ICE. Protesters made pertinent connections with other global struggles, such as the fact that U.S. police and ICE agents have done exchanges with the IDF, and the same tactics of repression are being used against our brothers and sisters in Palestine and globally, wherever the empire is active. Consciousness is rising quickly, and workers are building the infrastructure, solidarity, and capacity needed for a wider general strike, potentially to be called for May Day 2026. All power to the workers.
And Minneapolis's Lynn Lake neighborhood saw a remarkable display of community resistance when ICE agents attempted to enter Rectangle Pizza on Monday, January 12th. They stormed up on our door to try to get in, said co-owner Brianna Evans. Employees and local residents chased off the agents, who deployed chemical irritants, only to have the crowd push them back. We probably put a target on ourselves like that by helping people, which is sickening, Evans said. The incident followed the restaurant's fundraising campaign for nonprofits, which raised over $83,000, and their initiative to donate pizzas for people affected by ICE's presence. Solidarity extended down the street. Community members, including Sid King, stood guard outside Smitten Kitten, watching for ICE. If ICE is going to stay here, then I'm going to stay here, King said. We're sticking together as a community. Inside the store, donations of food and household goods poured in for people trapped in their homes. JP, Smitten Kitten's owner, said, "We have people calling us from all over the world trying to help. The store was just full, as are all the neighboring businesses." Evans emphasized the community's resolve. They don't belong here. They're not this community. They're not what we believe in. We support and love each other, and you can see from that video what happens when they try to fuck with us. The response showed that solidarity and care for neighbors can turn intimidation into collective defiance. After weeks of mass marches and road blockades, Bolivian workers, indigenous communities, teachers, and social movements forced the Paz government to repeal the controversial Decree 5503, known as the Gasolinazo, which had eliminated fuel subsidies and raised prices of essential goods by up to 162%. The neoliberal government initially refused to back down, with President Rodrigo Paz intent on dismantling the socialist reforms of the previous governments. But the indefinite general strike made clear that the people would not be silenced, and forced the government to ultimately rescind the measure. The struggle won more than just the reversal of the Gasolinazo. Bolivian workers secured a minimum wage increase, ensured that labor decisions would no longer be made unilaterally by the executive branch, and protected state natural resources from further privatization. Reflecting on the victory, Mario Argollo, Executive Secretary of the Bolivian Workers' Union, COB, said, "We have fulfilled our duty to all the people who are mobilizing. The people should feel happy because their struggle has not been in vain. Their struggle has yielded wonderful results. The country will thank them in the future." Argollo added, "We are grateful for the participation of all our comrades who have been on the picket lines in the streets, on strike, in the rain, in the hail, who have mobilized during vacations, on New Year's Day or at Christmas. There has been practically no rest, but these are the results. Let us remember that in unity we can achieve anything. When we are united, no one can subdue us." The COB emphasized that it would remain in a state of emergency to ensure the agreements were honored, demonstrating that organized, unified struggle can and does achieve lasting victories. Scotland has made history with the Community Wealth Building Act of 2026, the first national legislation of its kind anywhere in the world. The law enshrined community wealth building, CWB, as a strategic framework to generate, circulate, and retain wealth locally, ensuring economic benefits reach all communities and future generations. The legislation addressed the stark inequalities in Scotland, where the top 10% own 200 times more wealth than the bottom 10%, and a quarter of the people have less than $500 in savings. The Act requires the government to report on CWB progress, mandates that all local authorities and public bodies produce CWB action plans, and obligates public bodies to follow guidance to maximize local economic impact and reduce inequality. As inequality is a feature of capitalist accumulation, this will be difficult to achieve within a capitalist framework and will require significant redistribution. PLN will be following this as this program develops. In New York, Governor Hochul and Mayor Zohran Mamdani are partnering to deliver free childcare for 2-year-olds in New York City and expand universal access to 3K and pre-K programs across the state. This initiative will make affordable, high-quality childcare available for nearly 100,000 additional children in 2026 and ensure every 4-year-old has pre-K access by 2028 to 2029. New York is also investing $1.2 billion this year to expand childcare subsidies, bringing total support to over $3 billion. The 2Care program will serve 2-year-olds in high-needs areas first, expanding to all families by the 4th year, while the state will launch pilot programs in counties outside of New York City to provide year-round affordable childcare. A new Office of Child Care and Early Education will oversee implementation, workforce development, and continued support for children, families, and educators. Through these steps, New York is reducing the burdens on working families, ensuring children have access to early learning that is high quality, affordable, and inclusive. The Alliance of Sahel States, or the AES Confederation, is charting a bold path towards self-determination and Pan-African liberation. At its second summit in Bamako, Mali, in late December, AES leaders inaugurated a series of institutions to consolidate political, economic, military, and informational power across the region. The unified force of the AES, FUAES, comprising 5,000 troops from member states, was activated to combat imperialist-backed terrorism, enhance intelligence sharing, and coordinate air, ground, and logistical resources. Meanwhile, AES TV, AES Radio, The Voice of Liptako, and AES Print Media launched to strengthen regional cohesion and to empower the population against disinformation. On the economic front, the Confederal Bank for Investment and Development, the BCIDAES, opened with an initial capital of 500 billion CFA, or $890 million US, enabling sovereign financing of infrastructure and transport, energy, and mining, breaking dependence on Western-controlled financial systems. The summit concluded with Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré assuming the presidency of the Confederation, reflecting the AES principle of rotational leadership. General Goita celebrated the Confederation's progress. The AES has become an irreversible reality, demonstrating the capacity to transform revolutionary vision into concrete institutions that protect sovereignty, empower the people, and reshape the geopolitical balance. Long live the AES Confederation, an unyielding force against imperialism and neo-colonialism. Speaking of imperialism, tens of thousands of people across India, Italy, Africa, and the United States mobilized in unprecedented displays of solidarity with Venezuela following the U.S. military invasion and the abduction of President Nicolas Maduro and the First Lady Celia Flores on January 3, 2026. In India, workers, students, and leftist organizations led mass protests for 4 consecutive days, burning effigies of Donald Trump and denouncing imperialist aggression. The Center for Indian Trade Unions, or CITU, coordinated demonstrations across factories, offices, and streets, while youth and women's groups marched from Jammu and Kashmir to Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Assam, and West Bengal, calling for the immediate release of Maduro and his wife. The Communist Party of India Maoist leaders criticized the Indian government's refusal to condemn U.S. actions, calling it shameful and a pro-U.S. stance. In Italy, thousands rallied in 30 cities, denouncing U.S. violence and affirming support for Venezuela's Bolivarian revolution. Grassroots unions, student collectives, and political formations criticized European governments' complicity in imperialist aggression, linking the attacks in Venezuela to wider militarization across Palestine and beyond. The struggle of the Bolivarian Revolution is ultimately a struggle for a world centered on the interests of the working class, said Marta Colo of Potere al Popolo. Across Africa, governments, trade unions, socialist parties, and revolutionary movements issued strong condemnations. South Africa called for an emergency UN Security Council meeting, Ghana decried the violation of international law, and the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa linked the assault to a broader pattern of U.S. economic and military aggression on the continent. Socialist leaders from Zambia, Tunisia, Kenya, and Swaziland framed the invasion as state terrorism and imperialist resource seizure, calling for continental and global resistance. Pan-African organizations emphasized that Venezuela's defense is inseparable from the struggle against imperialism worldwide. In the United States, protests erupted in cities from New York to Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Activists condemned the invasion as illegal and warned of potential war, holding signs demanding "Free Maduro now" and "No blood for oil." Demonstrators highlighted the hypocrisy of U.S. claims to uphold democracy while violating sovereignty and called out the Trump administration for bypassing Congress. Anti-war organizers linked U.S. interventions abroad with deportations and domestic inequalities, emphasizing solidarity with Venezuelans and all affected communities. Across continents, the response converged around several key demands: respect for Venezuela's sovereignty, the immediate release of Maduro and Celia Flores, and a rejection of U.S.-led imperial aggression. From Asia to Africa, Europe, and the Americas, people demonstrated that opposition to imperialism, white supremacy, and continued colonization is global. Racketeering charges against 61 activists in the Stop Cop City movement were dismissed on December 30th, 2025, marking a major legal victory after years of attempted prosecution. The original 2023 indictment had labeled protesters opposing Atlanta's police training facility, known as Cop City, as part of some vast criminal conspiracy. The case faced repeated delays, procedural missteps, and shifting prosecution tactics. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Kevin Farmer ruled that the Georgia Attorney General lacked authority to bring RICO charges without the governor's approval, dismissing the charges as procedurally invalid. Judge Farmer criticized the prosecution's broad interpretation of dealing with the state, warning it could lead to absurd results and overly expansive powers for the Attorney General. Defense lawyers had argued that the charges were an overreach, and the ruling affirmed their position. While RICO charges were dismissed, related arson charges remain under review. The state could refile RICO charges with permission from the governor or appeal the ruling. But lawyers and activists celebrated the decision. The dismissal ends a major chapter in the long legal struggle against the criminalization of Cop City protesters. After Texas authorities attempted to erase rainbow street art, Planned Parenthood and local artists refused to be silenced, painting vibrant crosswalks outside health centers as a defiant declaration that queer lives cannot be erased. One Planned Parenthood organizer said, "Every step across these streets is a refusal to accept erasure, a refusal to accept oppression, and a declaration that LGBTQ+ people are here. We exist and we fight back." The initiative has already drawn crowds of supporters who stop to take photos and show solidarity, turning ordinary streets into public spaces of rebellion. By reclaiming these spaces, Planned Parenthood is sending a message to politicians and bigots alike. Queer communities will not be hidden, and attempts to erase their existence will be collectively refused. Poland has officially banned fur farming, making a historic victory for animal welfare. Poland, the largest fur producer in Europe and second globally, raises and kills around 3 million mink, foxes, raccoon dogs, and chinchillas annually. The ban passed with cross-party support and follows a European Food Safety Authority report highlighting systemic animal suffering on fur farms. Humane World for Animals Europe called the move a historic moment for animal protection in Poland and emphasized that the country's citizens largely oppose fur farming. Fur farming is increasingly criticized for its ethical, environmental, and public health impacts. Mink farms have been linked to COVID-19 outbreaks. H5N1 avian flu has appeared on European farms, and fur has significantly higher carbon footprint than cotton, polyester, or acrylic. The law prohibits the establishment of new fur farms. Poland's 200 existing farms have until 2034 to close, though many are expected to shut earlier, incentivized by government compensation. And that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for having me on. Los Angeles stands in solidarity with all of your struggles. Remember that we have to maintain high discipline and high morale and keep up the revolutionary optimism. We have nothing to lose but our chains and only a world to win. As mentioned, we have a special offer for viewers from Means TV, which is a worker-owned cooperative dedicated to supporting and producing anti-capitalist media. The streaming service hosts us, along with other rad creators like Second Thought and Luna Oy. It has full-length documentaries like Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, and Means original content like Means Morning News, Seriously Wrong's Papa and Boy, and much more. We're happy to announce that we are now able to offer viewers a discount on joining Means TV. If you sign up using our link and code, which is MEXI, you'll get 20% off your first month, which comes up to just $7.99. Or you could go with the annual option and get 20% off the entire year. Signing up using our code not only directly contributes to the financial sustainability of the Means Cooperative Media Project, but it is also a great way to support our channel. So, if you have the means, consider taking us up on this discount. The link and code are in the description box below. Thank you to Javi for the positive news jams. Thank you to Cosmo for the positive news background. Thank you to Catherine and Mexi for script writing and production. And thank you to the Hazels for editing this video. And of course, you don't need to thank me. I was so happy to be here. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/positiveleftistnews, or you can give us a one-time tip via PayPal. The link is in the description box below. Thank you guys, and as always, solidarity forever.